tuned for tonight's adventure with the Fat Man.
Okay, here we go. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time of day it is. I hope it's good to be where you are, because I'm really excited to be here today. My name is Baltimore Fats, and I am the master of reality. Yeah. And so this one begins like they all want to begin, with the Monday morning, September 10th, 1906 edition of the Baltimore Sun, and me wanting to finally get into the Jubilee proper. So I'm setting up my article, right, and I'm getting ready to read the first one, and I come to the phrase homecoming week. Now, it's been referred to as homecoming week in the Baltimore Sun pretty much this whole time, the Jubilee, but it never resonated with me for whatever reason. And even when I went to the Maryland Historical Society and asked about the Jubilee, the gentleman there said, "Oh, you mean homecoming week?" But still, nothing. I've seen it 100 times in the paper, never really meant anything to me. But when I was setting up the episode that I was going to do for Monday, the first day of the Jubilee, that I'll never get to, it just spoke to me. I don't know what it was, and I thought maybe it was because I tried to connect the Jubilee to the equinox, to the autumn equinox. And so it just started me thinking, like, who's coming home? Is it the sun? Is the sun coming home? And so I said, all right, I'm going to take a quick look at homecoming. Right? So I was looking at homecoming, which brought me to focus on the equinox a little bit further. Yeah, this is all an episode I'm going to do. But this is what happens when you're the master of reality. I typed in equinox to bring up the Wikipedia article, to set it all up. And again, now, for whatever reason, I had set this presentation up like 2 or 3 times and run through it and getting ready to record. And then this time, for whatever reason, because Google uses my location, it brings up, local entries for equinox first. And I'm kind of scrolling through, and I'm not really thinking much of it. And I see one right in Baltimore, and it's the Equinox Corporation. Baltimore's like, how come I never looked at this before? let me take a look at what this says for the Equinox Corporation. All right, and it's got one Google review for 5 stars, and it's right downtown, right in the Inner Harbor East area. All right, and here's the picture of the building they have. I'm like, why would any business choose this image to promote their location? It doesn't, I don't know. That just doesn't make sense to me. And so I'm continuing to scroll down, and I see the Google review is from Enchanted Moon. She gives it 5 stars. She writes, awesome. So I had to like it, of course. She's a witch riding a broom, and I'm thinking, I'm trying to tie my Jubilee to the, and homecoming, to the autumn equinox, and I have a review for this Equinox Corporation from a witch riding a broom. I couldn't believe it. So I'm like, I gotta check out their website. Right? And it's innovative technology for a changing world. Right? Make the most out of your sensors. So they make sensors. I'm looking, they got all military planes and stuff here, and I'm like, what does this say? It says, watch this video of the Navy's laser weapon system. The laws! Operational test report, right? So this is their laser system. So they make components for Navy laser systems. And what else do they do? They developed image fusion systems. What's image fusion system? And so this is what you get for image fusion systems. You get, principles of image fusion at a pixel level, right? And you get vision sensor systems widely deployed in surveillance, traffic, and industrial contexts. Pixel level image fusion algorithms for multi-camera imaging. It has unbelievable medical applications, as they show this CAT scan here or whatever. So that's really unbelievable. And then they make high-speed power video processing systems. And so for video processing system, we have an overview. And so it's pimping these demos, and it says that it can demonstrate key concepts like motion estimation and compensation, motion compensated filtering, video compression and reconstruction, the effects of noise, pre-processing. Yeah, I don't know, make of that what you will. And I love the computer chipboard here, which really brings me to the Matrix sort of on Earth theory that's brewing. Like in the Hopfield network, where these trapped neurons roaming around our realm of a computer chipboard. So I thought that was amazing, but no, I cannot get distracted by this. I have to do my homecoming episode, but I'm going to put this in the bank. So let me get to the equinox, I said to myself, setting up my homecoming video. And so I'm riffing on the equinox a little bit, and I'm talking about the language that they use, right? And how language can be manipulated and deceptive, and how they can flaunt that, right, in the open, right? And so the equinox is commonly regarded as the instant of time when the plane extended indefinitely in all directions of the Earth's equator passes through the center of the sun. And I'm riffing on the equinox, and I come to this, and they have a picture. It says, the sun at the moment of the March equinox 2019, when the sun crossed the celestial equator. The imaginary line. The equator's imaginary. And I'm like, that's a picture of the sun? I had to look at this closer, because to me, this does not look like a picture of the sun. It looks like animation, cartoony, CGI, right? So I had to blow it up real big to finally get like the vapor trail, right? And even this doesn't look that great to me. And so I wanted to look up other pictures of the sun, and when I Google pictures of the sun, it brings me this. And I'm like, is this pictures of the sun? What is this? Because this is not a picture of the sun. Yet they use this image a lot, as I'll show you. They want us to believe that this is what the sun looks like. And I'm scrolling down and scrolling down. I'm like, can somebody please give me a picture of the sun? Maybe the searches, I should search like photos of the sun instead. So, I mean, it's the same thing. Look, a photo of this. This is a photo of the sun, right? Google, the first image. Scrolling down. There's still no photo. Like, I have a picture of the sun. Here's a picture of the sun that I took in South Baltimore, right around the same time as I took the picture of Baal mocking me. And this is a picture of the sun. And I think this picture is amazing for some of the other features it has. And it's the aerials going nuts. South Baltimore is a hotbed of aerial activity. Because look at this picture. We have, and because the end game is all about sun worship, right? And what do the aerials give us? But 1 little, 2 little, 3 little aerials, 4 little, 5 little, 6 little aerials, 7 little aerials, sun worshipers. It's unbelievable what's going on in this picture here. And this is a picture of the sun. And I'm thinking, so I go back. I'm like, what if maybe they're afraid of like aerial activity in photographs being exposed around the sun, so they don't really have pictures of the sun? I mean, how far do I have to go, right? And this is not even a photo. What is this? Give me a picture of the sun. What's taking these pictures? Is this Hubble and everything? And so it started making me think about like fake space and pictures of space. And so I realized at this point, okay, yeah, homecoming's gonna have to wait. And I'm looking at these pictures of space, and I'm like, now I know that this isn't like what space looks like. If we were to go out in space, this is not what we would see, but this is what's being reinforced constantly in our science fiction movies and television programs and commercials and sort of every aspect of our visual life. We are subliminally suggested these images of space for what space looks like. And I like this one, right, because it looks like Moai on the Easter Island. Right? Yeah, I mean, that's a Moai, and they have it even facing the right direction, right, because Moai face inward, right? Scrolling down, yeah, that's a picture of space, all right. We got the Death Star in there, too, for good measure, because you got to reinforce that science fiction is reality, or can be reality. And this one I really liked it. Like, yeah, come on, give me a break. Picture. It's a picture of space. And I like this one because it looks like a Jack Kirby giant. So I was like thinking to myself, all right, now what is the process here that they're using to present this? They have the Hubble and other telescopes and stuff like that, but they're using filters and other aspects of science. Because like I said, this is not a point and click picture of space, these nebulas and whatnot. And so in my memory somewhere, it was spectrometry. that was the process that they used. And so I was like, all right, are these photographs that they present us of the sun and, you know, the universe and whatnot? This is like digitally rendered spectral data. And I don't have the definition up, but I love that the root word is specter, ghost, not there. That's the root of spectrometry. And I also love how hard it is to say because and this is again how they use language against us, right? If something is hard to say, you're less likely to say it or pursue it. And so when bringing up spectrometry here, everything is an analytical technique, right? This ion mobility spectrometry, analytical technique, mass spectrometry, and this Rutherford, and it's all analytical techniques. All right, and so I realized that is the process, but the science of it is called spectroscopy. All right, here we go with spectroscopy, right? And it's the study of the interaction between matter and electromagnetic radiation. Right? Electron spectroscopy, atomic spectroscopy, going micro, right? And it says, historically, spectroscopy originated through the study of visible light dispersed according to its wavelength by a prism. And they give us this very famous concept of prism here, which I'm going to talk about. Later, the concept was expanded greatly to include any interaction with radioactive energy as a function of its wavelength or frequency. And this is what we talk about in terms of our false paradigm, right? And how we are all electric creatures, right? We are matter. And so spectroscopy is the study of how frequencies relate to matter. And I also like here it says that recently, with tremendous difficulty, even gravitational waves have been associated with a spectral signature in the context of the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, or LIGO, right, and laser interferometry. And I think that that's amazing because you have to put that, it's in context. So only within this can they relate gravitational waves to spectroscopy. It has to be under these special circumstances. Right? And spectroscopy, primarily in the electromagnetic spectrum, is a fundamental exploratory tool in the fields of physics, chemistry, and astronomy, allowing the composition, physical structure, and electronic structure of matter to be investigated on an atomic, molecular scale, macro scale, and over astronomical distances. And so again, as I was saying, bringing the science to a micro level, yet at the same time, astronomical, bringing us into outer space and study of the stars and the sun. So I'm thinking about that, and this here, it's the exploratory tool for physics, chemistry, and astronomy. And so I'm like, all right, let's just go right through Falcon's Maze. These are the right, physics and chemistry are our physical world, right? And these are the processes and sciences that they manipulate to make all our technologies and all the things that make modern living so wonderful. Better living through chemistry, right? Right? And astronomy, things that distance us from our home, from our realm, right? And so let's go right through Falcon's Maze with physics. And right, so physics is from the knowledge of nature, right? It's the natural science that studies matter again, right? Its motion and behavior through space and time, right? Physics is one of the most fundamental scientific disciplines, right? And its main goal is to understand how the universe behaves. Goal, right? It has an agenda, physics does, or it could. Right? Physics is one of the oldest academic disciplines, and through its inclusion of astronomy, perhaps the oldest. Right? And it says, and that chemistry, biology, and certain branches of mathematics were a part of natural philosophy. But during the scientific revolution in the 17th century, these natural sciences emerged as unique research endeavors in their own right. unique research endeavors. What's an endeavor, right? It's an attempt to achieve a goal, right? And that's what they said here about physics, its main goal, right? And so before it was a natural philosophy, right? It's just the study of nature and stuff and trying to explain our physical realm, right? But during the scientific revolution in the 17th century, it becomes industrialized. And so I thought that was pretty amazing. And then I was looking at this picture, and I was like, what is that? Oh my God, if that doesn't look like the somatic signatures that, you know, I've tied to a couple of churches here, right? We have the F sharp 2 that I've tied to the church in my neighborhood here, right? And the D2, which I've tied to the church in Washington, D.C. near Nationals Park. And you're never going to be able to convince me that the Nationals didn't win the World Series because I went to a Nationals game this year. Prove me wrong. So this has the D2, and that's one of the things about tying these sonic frequencies to the church windows and the idea that these churches are machines and that they're modulating these natural frequencies and harmonies, right? And that the F and the D are also computer programming languages, right? And that the F relates to the visual in that it all goes into graphics processing units. And so all of our touch screens and our televisions and things like that use this F sharp programming language. And of course, that also is all visual, right? And that's hypnotic. We believe things because we can see them, right? And then the D2, which was the sonic signature, is a D programming language, and it has the two things breaking off to represent the D2. And so I was like, I have to look now at this, at this, whatever this was, right? And see if I can correlate, because these shapes just remind me of that. And what this is the hydrogen wave function chart. And so I'm not going to go into what hydrogen wave function is too deeply, because I don't want to make myself look any more silly than I already am, or I already do rather. But essentially it's probability, right? And where the electrons are going to go, and they have coordinates here underneath. Let me blow this up. All right, the image isn't that great, but these are coordinates or whatever, and they use it to predict the electrons for hydrogen, right? I think, if I'm not mistaken. And so right away, like this one, oh, I've seen that on churches, definitely, right? And I couldn't find one in my personal archive, so I had to use an internet image, but here it is on a church. And so I'm like, now the whole like church machine element is coming in, and with the frequencies, with the sound, right? And the somatic pattern showing up as windows, but now I have hydrogen wave function patterns showing up here. And can I connect this one, which I just did to a church, also to a chord frequency? And I can. It actually has a couple, right? It's the E2 and also the F2. All right, have 6 pedals or whatever. And it just goes to show just what slight jumps in frequency can do, because this only goes up a half step to the sharp, and it doubles the pedals. Right? So imagine the effect that frequencies have on micro scales, like in a millistep, you know? And also, so I was like, that's amazing, right? So this is an E and an F, there's an E2 and an F2, right? And I have it on a church. And I'm looking at some of these other patterns, and you see these Oculus type windows all over churches as well. But most commonly, I see this clover pattern. And I always tried to connect the clover pattern to these, but I never could. Right? I haven't found one yet. Not that I've dug and looked at all of the musical alphabet and their somatic patterns. I just haven't. But because I always wait for this information to sort of come to me organically. Right? And so that made me think about, with the church machines and everything, and now connecting it to hydrogen and the clover pattern, and like the radios, and how the radios look like churches. And the theory that's out there about church machines. And now this is one that's right in my neighborhood, and it looks very much like a radio, right? And they use sonic frequencies. And on this one, it has the clover, which is now a hydrogen wave function connection, right? The physics of it. And so could these churches be modulating hydrogen in a way? Because hydrogen is the most prevalent element, they tell us, right, in chemistry. And so I wanted to find actual pictures of churches, but I don't have any in my canon, unbelievably. I'm slacking. So I asked Miss Havisham, because I was certain I saw some in her videos, if she had any stills that she could send me with the clover pattern in them on the front of a church. And she sent me this one, and this is the church that's right in her town of Sheffield. And so I'm going to blow it up a bit, right? And this is an amazing image of it, right? Because it's a clover within clovers here. And now I'm going to take a minute here and talk about the work that Miss Havisham is doing, because she is doing amazing work studying these old church structures in England and in her area. And in a couple of recent videos, she's talked about, where is it here? This Final Destination one, she makes an unbelievable connection to the headstones, which of course made of like crystal, and how they could be resonating or modulating the frequencies in the atmosphere. You know, coming up, because this particular church here, this Anglo-Saxon church, is by a river, right? It's on top of a hill, right? And there's quartz and all of that, and these headstones, and they're set up. They can be read almost like musical notes across. And I thought that was amazing, right? That they could be capturing the harmonic frequencies of the church and modulating them through the stones. And she also makes observations about what other function these headstones could be serving with the soil creep, and how these machines, these giant church machines, and this one and I like, whenever my phone rings and I'm saying something, I like to say that I got something right. The universe is telling me that I got something right. So these are church machines. And the Sheffield one was built in the 1200s. It started construction. All right. And so having them on top of hills and putting out these frequencies and having them modulated by the stones, what other purpose, because there's no bodies there, is what she talks about on her channel, right? And if they're modulating frequencies, and these church machines, they need an insulator. And what's the insulator but the earth? And that these, not only do they modulate the frequencies, but they keep the earth around the church structure, right? They keep the soil from moving and eroding away. And to me, that is absolutely a revelation, right, in the church machine business. And so Miss Havisham, amazing, amazing work. If you're not paying attention to what she's doing, you need to be. Unbelievable. Thank you, Miss Havisham, for all the work that you do and for sharing your picture with me. I absolutely love what you're doing. And so now I wanted to connect more. What else could I learn about the clover pattern, right? Especially now that I have hydrogen wave function and church machines on the brain. I want to find out more about quatrefoils. And it says it's a decorative element consisting of a symmetrical shape which forms the overall outline of 4 partially overlapping circles of the same diameter. Right, here's the shape. It's a clover, 4-leaf clover. Although they don't mention it here, it's sometimes thought to represent Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. But it enjoys its peak popularity as an architectural feature during the Gothic and Renaissance eras. And now that's when, as the story's coming to me, that's when the church machines would have been repurposed for their religious functions, right? But it was also, the quatrefoils also found in ancient Mesoamerica as early as 850 BC. So that makes me wonder about, maybe these church structures from the Middle Ages could be this old, right? And just given a facelift for their religious purposes, right? And they get to hide all the meaning in there and everything. Making these connections to the machine, and I think this still is the best representation of the machine as a radio. All right, and now with the quatrefoil in here and the hydrogen, so you have your sonic frequencies, your radio frequencies, perhaps controlling and manipulating, right? And then you have a possibility of hydrogen. Could it be creating or modulating hydrogen in some way? And now I'm looking at this, and do you see this face in here? That's unbelievable. Oh my God. It's like a lion's face in here. That's crazy. So, yeah, so, the church's machine, but so who would be using these machines? And when I did the Radio City episode, and around this time anyway, I was looking into Gnosticism, all right, because it has this concept of the Demiurge, right? And so briefly, what Gnosticism is, real quick, is, from the ancient Greek, having knowledge, is this series of beliefs that come from early Christian thought in this Hellenistic Judaism, that the only way to salvation is through knowledge and an understanding. In its literature, right, it presents a distinction between a supreme and transcendent God and an evil demiurge, creator of the material universe, the latter responsible for trapping the divine spark within matter. And I don't know, just seeing matter here and connecting it with the physics earlier, physics being the study of matter, I thought that was kind of cool, right? But to move this forward, I need to get to the concepts. Right? And so the Gnostic concept of God is that he's the monad, the one, right? The high source of the pleroma, Roma, right? The region of light. There are emanations that live in this pleroma, and they're called aeons. The first of these aeons was this hermaphroditic barbello, from which successive aeons emanated, right? Often in male-female pairings called syzygies. And then there was Sophia, right? She is the final and lowest emanation of God, and she's commonly paired with Christ. And so Sophia, emanating without her partner, results in the production of the demiurge. She throws off the balance, right? There was harmony. And she throws off the balance and creates the demiurge, who is known as Yaldabaoth, right? And he is born outside of the pleroma, right? In isolation. And so being alone, it creates materiality and a host of co-actors, these archons, who could be looked at as the Nephilim, right? And then then the demiurge is responsible for the creation of mankind, trapping elements of the pleroma stolen from Sophia inside human bodies, right? The divine spark. And so here's the demiurge. Here he is. Here's Yaldabaoth, right? And they portray him as sometimes ignorant of the superior God and sometimes opposed to it. Thus, in the latter case, he is correspondingly malevolent, not nice. Right? And then other names or identifications are Ahriman, El, Satan, and Yahweh. God, right? The Hebrew God, the Christian God. And I love this image of him, right? Yaldabaoth, the demiurge, the dragon, the worm. And he looks so much like my little worm guy here on the side of this building, right? Absolutely. And so Gnostic Yaldabaoth on the side of a building in Baltimore. Right? And that was really unbelievable. So now my mind is like, yes, I'm really onto something here. Right? And I need to get back to spectrometry, right? But then, seeing Sophia again, thinking about getting back to spectrometry, right? And the fake space photos. And Sophia, of course, is the NASA plane that uses infrared spectrometry. Could be what really is Hubble, and to take all these images of space, right? I think that's amazing, to connect this plane that takes the pictures of space to Sophia, who emanates Yaldabaoth. Right? So I go back to spectroscopy. Here we go with spectroscopy. Right? It's the study of the interaction between matter, that which we're trapped in, right? And electromagnetic radiation, right? Via electron spectroscopy, atomic spectroscopy, etc. Bringing it down to the micro here. Historically, spectroscopy originated through the study of visible light dispersed according to its wavelength by a prism. We have that very famous image here. Right? Later, the concept was expanded greatly to include any interaction with radiative energy as a function of its wavelength or frequency. Because we're all electric creatures, right? Predominantly in the electromagnetic spectrum, right? Matter waves, acoustic waves, right? The church machines. And I think it's hilarious here. It says, recently, with tremendous difficulty, even gravitational waves have been associated with a spectral signature in the context of the Laser Interferometer Gravitational Wave Observatory, LIGO, and laser interferometry. I love, only within the context, right? Only here, only under this special circumstance can gravity be tied to spectrometry. But I want to get to the history of spectrometry. And so it has its own history of spectrometry page, right? And then here's this image again. And now, of course, I have all this Gnosticism on my mind, and having just seen this image on the other page, I'm like, is this the only image that there is for spectroscopy? And, because now looking at it now, I mean, not only is it the album cover for Dark Side of the Moon, which amazingly was created by this design firm, Hypnosis. And look, not only Dark Side of the Moon, but almost every Pink Floyd album cover, I think. Look at these bands, the album covers that they did. Hypnosis, using the music and the visuals to hypnotize. I mean, some of my favorite bands are represented in here. And I'll get more into this down the line, But I think that's really amazing that, hypnosis and Gnosticism and spectrometry, all tie together with this image, right? And tying it further with, like, the Gnosticism, like, this could be, like, Sophia. And this is the mechanism that Yaldabaoth, the pyramid, uses to create the archons and humanity, right? And I'm looking at this, and I'm thinking of, like, a dissection of the Great Pyramid, right? And, this isn't the best one, but, the pleroma goes in, right? And out comes the archons, right? And could, just open speculation here about, tying some of these ancient structures to the creation of our realm and what these ancient structures could have been, these giant machines, I don't know. I'm having a lot of fun with that idea. I think that's pretty amazing. And just to top this one off, it's also the logo for the Equinox Corporation. I mean, look at that. And now, the closer I look at it now, it's more like Dark Side of the Moon via Black Sabbath's Technical Ecstasy, right? Which is also an album cover by Hypnosis. I just think it's unbelievable that the logo, right? Because this is the only logo for spectroscopy. Right? There's no other image for it. Right? And to be able to tie it to all this modern technology, especially with the image fusion systems and video processing and how we visually experience our reality, right? And trying to tie this into the idea that they're faking space. And so now it's time for me to get back into the history of spectroscopy, because I'm really on a story here now, right? And so the origins and experimental development of spectroscopy. But that's going to have to wait for Master of Reality Part 2. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one. I had a lot of fun bringing it to you. I'm really excited for Part 2 and Part 3. It's going to be a 3-parter. And so until the next one, cheers, guys.